This is episode number 61 of the Taste Trekkers Fine Dining Podcast. Welcome to Stowe, Vermont.
This is the Fine Dining Podcast. The Fine Dining Podcast. For foodies who love travel and travelers who love food. Here's your host, Seth Ressler.
Hello and welcome to the Fine Dining Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Seth Ressler, and this is the podcast for foodies who love travel and travelers who love food. Here's how it works. Every week, we talk to somebody new from a different city, and we talk to them about their local culinary scene. So if you're going there and you're a foodie and you want to know where to go and what to check out, we tell you all about it. This week, we're talking to Ken Aiken, and we're talking about Stowe, Vermont. Ken, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Now, you're a travel writer, and you focus on food, and you focus on motorcycling. And this is fascinating to me. I'm going to warn you right up front. Everything I know about motorcycling, I learned from watching the TV show Sons of Anarchy. So, you're the author of Touring Vermont Scenic Roads, Motorcycle Journeys Through New England, Motorcycle Journeys Through Atlantic Canada, and you're a regular contributor to Rider, Backroads, Thunderpress magazines, and a number of other places. So I'm really excited to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it.
One of the things that I think is really interesting is you call yourself a moto foodie.
Correct.
Explain that concept to me. What is a moto foodie?
Outside the United States, motorcycles are referred to as moto. And, of course, foodie. So it goes together. It doesn't make any sense in terms of tourism, for example, to talk simply about travel because you have to stop and eat. Nor does it make sense to talk just about regional cuisine and foodie destinations because somehow you have to arrive there. So I put the two concepts together, and now I'm branding myself as a moto foodie in addition to my regular travel writing.
So this is really interesting. I mean, this is a concept that we haven't really talked about on the podcast, but essentially what you're saying is how you get to the destination is a really important part of the travel. Will people who travel by motorcycle experience food in a different way or somehow wind up with different experiences than people who, say, take a car or fly in or things like that? And then how does that influence, sort of what your experience is going to be?
It's very simple. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to it, but the basic simple thing is 90% of our taste is smell. So if you're in an environment where you're not closed in air conditioning, but you're out there and you're smelling the countryside that you're going through, in fact, you're even smelling some of these restaurants before you get to them, this heightens the experience. Would you say? Yeah,
no, that totally makes sense. I mean, I would imagine that, especially when you get into some of these places that really love to do the farm to table, you start to see all that. You know what I mean? We have such a disconnect from our food before it winds up on our plate these days. And I would imagine that opens the door and you get to see a lot more of that when you're traveling by motorcycle.
Well, that's correct. There's also a disconnect in travel. You're in a car that many hardcore bikers call a cage simply because your view is restricted. When you're on a motorcycle, your view is complete. I can look down and see the pavement underneath my feet. At the same time, I can look up into the sky and I can see unrestricted views on either side. So as I'm moving along and there's something taking place in the field, I get the smell that's coming across. I get the temperature changes because, for example, riding through a forest is cooler on a sunny day than alongside a field or a field that has a river. So there's that sensory input as well. Plus the smell of new mown hay or the smell of cooking that's coming out of a house, a restaurant, whatever. So it is a much greater sensory experience when you're approaching on a motorcycle. Plus, being out in the open air, being exposed to wind and the elements, you do work up more of an appetite.
Oh, I believe it. Tell me a little bit more about exactly what you do, either on a day-to-day basis or sort of on a, like what does the last couple months look like for you? What are you doing?
Well, in May, I was out in Milwaukee checking out that food scene and writing about where to eat and stay when people arrive for the big 110th anniversary that Harley-Davidson's putting on. Then a new event took place at the big Laconia rally in which they initiated a farm tour. In many parts of New Hampshire, the farm-to-table movement is in its fledgling stages. So this was a very important step to introduce 350,000 motorcyclists to the possibility of seeing what food was produced locally.
Wow.
Those are examples. I went down and extended that and went down to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where I think the brew scene started in 1971 and is also sort of the epicenter of what's happening in their food movement. I spent time in Vermont. I'm working now on a project in Ottawa with Savoie, Ottawa. So as I'm doing travel, I'm also doing food travel.
How do you wind up doing this? I mean, I know I've got people listening who are sitting there going, that sounds like the coolest thing ever. This guy just rides his bike around and eats at different places and writes about it. Tell me about your background and how you wound up doing this.
Well, I grew up in Vermont. I grew up learning to garden and forage and cook and preserve food at an early age, and this is very much part of my background. Then in the 1970s, I started making acquaintances like Ben Cohen when he had a little 5-gallon bucket that he was producing ice cream in. And that evolved, of course, into Ben and Jerry's. My friends were all involved in creative endeavors, and some of those were food. So you couldn't ignore it. Things were coming up like Bill started Catamount Brewery. And, of course, there was always Cabot Creamery and their cheeses and Crowley cheeses. It's just the Vermont environment. And this was at its sort of adolescent stages.
So you really grew up around this, and I mean, this was happening right where you were.
Yes, but I didn't have an outside perspective. So this was all taken for granted. Like this was normal. There wasn't anything special about it. It didn't become special until my former wife and I started going back and forth from Vermont to Italy. And in Italy, I gained an outside perspective on food culture. And I took my Vermont experiences and I started to combine them, writing for Italian Food, Wine, and Travel magazine. And I guess that's when I first began to acknowledge that I was a foodie. I didn't understand it before being in Italy.
I think you're right. I think people just take it for granted. It's one of those things that people come out and say, oh, I'm totally a food tourist, but they didn't know that there was a name for it. Like they just sort of took it for granted and didn't realize that it was a thing. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. It's just that food and tourism is just beginning to be put together. And I live in two very different food scenes. At Montreal, which is one of the great food destinations in North America, and Vermont, which is doing incredibly exciting things with food, but they're very, very different. But both have food tourism, Seth.
Right. So let's turn to Vermont. But before we do, I know you have a trivia question for me about Stowe. Tell me what it is.
What national organization was founded in Stowe?
A national organization that was founded in Stowe. Now, is this a food-related organization?
No, it's not. It's not a food, but it's highly recognized. It's not obscure.
Okay, so, I don't think it's NASA. Give me a hint. Sort of what arena is it in? Is it political? Is it cultural? Sports.
Yeah.
Stowe, Vermont.
Recreational sport, we'll call it.
I'm thinking that it's probably something to do with skiing or winter sports up there, but I'm going to think about it for a little bit. We're going to come back to that question. What national organization started in Stowe? While I'm thinking about it, let's talk about Stowe. First of all, where is Stowe?
Stowe is in the center of Vermont. It's very close to Montpelier. It's a little bit southeast of Burlington. It's positioned in a very narrow valley between the Presidential Range and the Worcester Range of mountains. In fact, the two highest peaks in Vermont are Mount Mansfield and Spruce Peak, and they form the backdrop for the village of Stowe. This valley is 20 miles long. It's anchored on the south by a village called Waterbury. Waterbury being the home for both Ben and Jerry's ice cream and Vermont Coffee Roasters, which is the largest fair trade coffee roaster in the world. Whereas on the northern end is a small up-and-coming town called Morrisville. And that's very exciting since new, fresh things are beginning there. So This particular stretch through which Route 100, a highway that follows the mountains the entire length of Vermont, is located, and it is part of what they call the Golden Highway because of the wealth and prosperity along this particular corridor.
And how many people are we talking about in Stowe? I mean, how big is it?
Well, we can.
So in other words, this is a place that a lot of people come in as a vacation destination.
People come in from around the world to ski in Stowe. It's the self-proclaimed ski capital of the East. Many people from Europe have actually moved to Stowe or own very luxurious summer homes. But many of these summer homes and these incredible resorts have become three-season. So it's as busy in the summer as it is in the winter these days.
And is this a place that you have to be wealthy to visit? I mean, do I have to wait till my Facebook stock goes up to $150 a share before I can plan a vacation, or can you come in on a budget?
You can come in on a budget, and the place that we're going to be talking about, I feel, is very budget-oriented. But again, a lot of people equate the amount of money you spend to the richness of the experience that you're going to receive, and that's just not true. When you think about skiing, for example, I mean, there are ski bums, and then there are very wealthy skiers. So even though the standard for food is exceptionally high, that doesn't translate into pricing.
Is there a particular time of year to come?
The whole issue is there's so much going on. I mean, here, Balloon Festival, the famous Stowe antique auto shows, the Vermont craft festivals. There's so much going on that even if you live in Stowe, you do not get to go to everything. You have to make choices. You really do. And in the winter time, of course, the place is packed because you have cross-country skiing at Trapp, you have snowshoeing, you have not only Stowe, but along Route 100, you have other ski areas. So it becomes exceedingly busy at that time. There's also, and it brings a lot of people who just come for the beauty of this place. From the village of Stowe in the bottom of the valley, there is a road called the Mountain Road. It's Route 108. And it goes up one side of Mount Mansfield, and it goes through a narrow canyon between the two highest peaks in the state. It's called Smuggler's Notch. Smuggler's Notch is dramatic. And so it's not open in the winter. It's only open in the summer. They can't plow up through there. Tourists just come. Many people just drive through Stowe. It's that kind of place.
Now let's talk about food in this region. I mean, what is this region of Vermont known for?
This region has more top award-winning restaurants than any place between Boston, New York City, and Montreal.
Really?
Yeah.
That much fantastic dining there.
There's that much fantastic dining, and then when you move away from the so-called award-winning, it's still pretty astounding.
I mean, are there farms in the area, I take it?
I'm going to talk a little bit about the Farm Fresh Network because this is a big movement, and there's many other producers like Sean Buchanan, the speaker at the Taste Trekker Conference. He was very instrumental in Stowe in introducing farm to table and is now the business development director for Black River Produce. Another one of the panelists is Megan Sheridan. She is actually the executive director of the Vermont Fresh Network. So these people have been very instrumental in developing this relationship between farmers, food producers, and chefs.
Yeah, and we should note that we're recording this before the Taste Trekkers Conference, but people are probably listening to it afterwards. But these are, like you said, Sean Buchanan and Megan Sheridan, two of the people who are going to be speaking there. So talk to me a little bit about what they did. I mean, what is the farm-to-table movement like in Vermont?
Well, from my personal perspective, growing up in a family of farmers, I watched this transition of the small family farm disappearing and the lands coming back to woods. But the hippie movement that I was a part of saw many people coming back wanting to live off the land. In the process, and with the assistance of the state of Vermont, the Agricultural Department, the Vermont Extension Service, they were able to develop specialty foods. Vermont is well known for production of cheese, and at one time before refrigerated transport by rail, every town had their own cheese producer. So some survived into the modern day, like Crowley cheese. Others became incredibly well-known, like Cabot cheeses. They're famous cheddars, who 2 years ago they took the world gold medal for English-style cheddar, much to the upset Brits over that one. But and someone else I know just took national gold for their goat cheese. So these specialty producers, with the help from the state, are creating farms that are self-sustaining and bringing that kind of exciting food, besides things like, all your veggies that you produce, besides, livestock that's properly produced. It's always wonderful to know where your food comes from, whether it's a chicken or a cucumber. And more people understand that in Vermont, but it has risen to a national level. And when chefs can support the local economy at the same time presenting wonderful, ultra-fresh ingredients to their diners, it becomes a win-win situation.
You're really seeing this connection between the chefs and the local farmers.
Well, that's correct. And I'm going to go back to Sean Buchanan, because he was the executive chef of the Stowe Mountain Lodge, which is very high-end lodge at the base of the famous ski resort. And in fact, even Cliff House sits on the very summit of Mount Mansfield. He brought in this concept to this big corporation, and it has proven to be an extreme success. And this success is mirrored in the fact that it's successful not only in their top 4-star dining room, but also in their smaller venues. There's also many Europeans who've come. For example, the Trapp family came from Austria, Sound of Music and all that, and they have the Trapp family lodge. So this is sort of a formalization of something that was happening before, but now has become much more commercially viable.
So let's talk about Stowe as I'm headed in, and I'm a foodie. Are there certain neighborhoods or strips or streets to explore that I should definitely make sure I check out?
When you start out, you're starting out in Waterbury. There's local restaurants we're not even going to talk about, which really are very, very good. But then there are places like Hen of the Woods, which is the old Mist Mill. But the Hen of the Wood and Eric Warnstadt is such a noted chef that they're now opening it in Vermont's newest boutique hotel in Burlington. You move past them and you get into a famous New York chef. And Michael Cloty came from New York, wanting to get away from that crazy corporate chef world, and established his own place called Michael's on the Hill. Well, this is also going past Ben & Jerry's factory tours of their ice cream plant, going past Cold Hollow Cider Mill. You have to go past the Alchemist, which is one of the hottest microbreweries in IPA beers. And you're moving up the valley along this. You'll see little hand-painted signs saying Garlic Farm and things of this nature. And 10 miles later, you pull into the little village of Stowe. And the little village of Stowe has many incredible eateries in there. We talk about Ben & Jerry's, but there's many other homemade ice cream places that exceed that quality, like Icy Scoops right in the middle of Stowe. And then there's innovative places that are opening, like the Blue Moon Cafe that's hidden behind on School Street. These are small places, but most people turn at the 3-way stop sign, which actually works quite well, and they head up the mountain road, which is so packed with places that it becomes really crazy. That if you wanted just to maybe have a quick lunch, something, or you could stop into the Green Goddess Cafe, where they make everything from absolute scratch. If you like Mexican food, why not go for real Mexican food at Frida's? Like beer? Is that something you enjoy?
I do like beer.
Well, the Vermont Ale House is not a microbrewery. They stock many microbreweries from Vermont, but they also stock very scarce, hard-to-find beers from around the world.
That's my favorite type of place. I love walking in and ordering the beer that I've never heard of before. It sounds like there's a lot going on there. Are there any, you mentioned a couple, are there any other chefs that we should keep our eye on?
There's many top chefs. There's like Josh Berry, there's Kim Lembrat at the Trapp Family, and Steve Trousseau at Green Mountain Inn. One of my favorites is Antonio De Vito at the Trattoria La Festa. But if you want real Italian food, that's where you go, because they're Italians. They brought it over as a family tradition, and they've been there for 25 years.
Are the chefs there, do they tend to be local and come up through the area, or are chefs moving to Stowe from other regions?
They're moving from other regions. Michael Clotie, of course, was a big New York chef. Another one is Steve Schmoller, who's a well-known chef. He's developed many things like Culinary Cream. He came up to Vermont to become the vice president of product development for Cabot Creamery, and then he opened the Miss Mill in Waterbury, which became absolutely top ranked. But after that became successful, he closed it. He left. He went to Cleveland. And in Cleveland, he opened a kitchen. He called it the Customized Restaurant Operations Platform, CROP. And that developed into a whole farm-to-table movement that has made it the top restaurant in Cleveland. He just moved back to structure up this CROP in Stowe. Meanwhile, he teams up with another well-known chef called Tom Bivens. And Tom was the chef at the Inn at Shelburne Farm. Shelburne Farms being the Vanderbilt Webb estate in Shelburne. And then he moved from there to Pritchard's in Warren, another ski area. And while he was there, he helped them get the designation of Realis et Chateau. From there, he just moved on and became the executive chef at the New England Culinary Institute, which he just recently left to become the co-owner and executive chef at the Crop Bistro. Now, they also pull in a brewer, Will Gilson. Will's background was he just spent a short time at The Alchemist. He's best known for all the brews he developed at the Moat Mountain Smokehouse Brewing in North Conway. Before that, he was at Snake River Brewing in Jackson Hole and Squatters Brew Club in Salt Lake City. These guys then hire Tim Bauer as a general manager, and he was the owner of a trendy bar and tapas restaurant, very trendy thing in Del Mar Beach, in West Palm Beach, Florida. It's called the Falcon House. So this shows one place where they pulled this talent and all this interconnections into a totally new fusion that's happening. And this exemplifies what's happening in Vermont, not just in Stowe, but also in other places like Burlington and southern Vermont.
We're going to take a break, come back in just a second, and we are not only going to get an answer to your trivia question, we're going to find out what national organization started in Stowe. We are also going to dig into your restaurant recommendation, and then we're going to play a game called Out of the Frying Pan. So Ken Aiken was one of the many people who actually came out to the Taste Trekkers Food Tourism Conference. We actually recorded this interview before the conference, and then he was there, and I'm so glad that he came out and so many other people did. We had an absolutely fantastic time in September in Providence, Rhode Island. And if you want to see pictures and tweets and recordings of some of the speeches that were given there, you can go over to tastetrekkers.com/conference and you can find a full recap of everything that went on there. In addition to that, in the coming weeks in the podcast, I'm actually going to post recordings of some of the various sessions. We've already posted a recording, it was episode number 59 of Matt Jennings' keynote address, so you can hear that, and there's more to come. I do want to let you know about one other thing, which is that you can now go to the Taste Trekkers website, and on the right-hand side, there's a tab that says Leave a Voicemail, and you can actually leave a message for us. So if you want to hear your own voice in this podcast, go on, leave a message, ask us a question, say something, give us a comment, tell us about some great event that you want to plug, let us know, and we will include it in here. All right? Thanks so much, and we'll get back to Ken. We are talking to Ken Aiken. He is a moto foodie. I mean, you're up in the sort of northeast, going between Vermont and Canada on your motorcycle and, checking out the food scene and writing about it. And we're talking about Stowe, Vermont. Ken, you had a trivia question for me. Give it to me one more time.
My trivia question, what national organization was founded in Stowe? And you wanted a hint, so I told you it was sport-related, recreational sport even.
Yep.
And your guess?
So recreational sport, I'm thinking it's got to be something around winter sports, something like skiing. But I don't know. I don't know what the National Ski Organization is. Am I close?
You're close. You're close. It's the National Ski Patrol.
Oh!
These are the people that keep you safe when you're on the slopes.
So that started in Stowe.
In 1938, and there's now 26,000 members on 600 patrols around the United States and even in some U.S. protectorates and some other places. And they work with organizations around the world. But these are the people, a lot of volunteers, that will keep you safe, rescue you if you need to. So it's very, very important.
All right. I asked you for a restaurant recommendation. I said if we're coming into Stowe, where should we go? Tell me what you chose.
Well, I chose Crop. Now, the Crop actually doesn't mean food. Crop is referring to Customized Restaurant Operations Platform, which was developed by a particular chef. And this is the second Crop. The first Crop is in Cleveland, probably the most, I would like to say prestigious, but the best word would be most highly regarded restaurant in Cleveland.
And this brought together the four guys that you were talking about before.
Yes, there was a restaurant there before. It was called The Shed. This is where après-ski was actually developed. It was one of the first brew pubs in Vermont. Very, very popular place. And when it closed in 2011, October, I think, many of us were rather devastated. But a particular person who has connections with Vermont, we were talking about Steve Schmoller earlier, he came from Cleveland because he had success in Waterbury with the mist bill that he developed, plus he was the product developer for Cabot Creamery. And his daughter is one of the taste gurus of Ben & Jerry's. So he has Vermont connections. He came and purchased it and started to revamp it. Of course, with his connections, he teamed up an amazing chef, Tom Bivens. What they did was they ordered a $500,000 state-of-the-art brew system from an Austrian company, which was then shipped and installed in this restaurant in the front atrium.
Okay, so they're brewing their own beers here.
They're brewing their own beers. They brought in a master brewer who, again, had Vermont connections, but not just Vermont, also this outside perspective, since his background takes him all the way out to Jackson's Hole. He became very well known in his 10 years in North Conway, developing brews. And his reason for making a move was simply that the existing brew company had grown to such an extent that they needed to standardize their brews. Anytime that you get into mass production of something, customer expects when they open a bottle, they're going to get a particular taste. And people of this creative level constantly want to be advancing themselves. They can only do this by being able to experiment. And when you have a brew system that produces only 8.5 barrels of brew at a time, you can tweak things and change things around and find these ultimate combinations, either based on the menus they're going to be offering, or seasonal concepts, a festival that's coming up, or just, I wonder if this will work.
So you've got all these guys coming together. Tell me a little bit about the vibe of the place. I mean, when we walk in, what's the feeling? What's it look like? What's the experience?
Now, this is tricky because you have an established place called The Shed, and you want to revamp this place, but you don't want to be upsetting your regular customers. So it was done with a great deal of sensitivity. The kind of funky barn-like pub was retained. The new brew system was put in right next to it in a modern atrium where they have the 2 stories of glassed in front so that you can see the gleaming copper from the road. Then they updated the interior. There's a number of different settings. The main dining room has cathedral ceilings. It's very, very light and airy. Tables, chairs, some Persian carpets on the floor. It's not pretentious, though. There's photographs from a noted Vermont photographer by named Miller. It's very pleasing and warm. Adjoining that, and separated by this huge glass partition, is a very hip bistro bar with wood and lacquered tree limbs, and that has its own room. But that room becomes divided by a big stone fireplace, which would be extremely cozy in the winter, of course.
That does sound very cozy.
If you go out back, there's a very large patio under the trees. And this patio separates the back of the restaurant from the bicycle path where people are rollerblading and bicycling and walking, which follows the river. So for people like myself who come with their motorcycle gear, or bicyclists who are showing up in their latex and they're warm and everything, or people that are just walking along, or even those that just want to be outside on a nice day, there is a patio by a river sheltered from the noise of a highway.
I'll tell you right now, that's where you're going to find me. I'm going to be out on the back patio sampling the beers. So let's say I sit down, and obviously that's the first thing I'm going to want to start with. You got a brew that you would start off with?
No, I don't have a brew that I start off with because, like I mentioned, this changes all the time. So you can be coming back every single week, and you're going to be finding some other offerings.
Which is okay by me. I mean, I like to walk in and try the sampling. And like I said, try something I've never had before. But yeah, for example, what are some of the things you've had there?
Recently, Will produced an oatmeal milk stout, which was so extremely smooth. And the hops aftertaste was absent. And I think it is one of the best brews to pair up with meals that I've had in a long, long time. There was a Bavarian Weizen that it's half a Weizen that he produced, which was a wonderful summer beer. It had a little tang to the back taste that cleansed my palate, and I like this a lot. Although personally, I wouldn't pair it up with food. This is the kind of beer that I associate with a hot summer day, and I would just drink it by itself. And there's a third one. I'm just going to bring up. There's a Bock, a double Bock, actually. This Bock, I just happen to like it. It was extremely smooth, and it was my favorite. Those who like wine, we could talk about wine, but those who like wine know that the glass is important. And one of the things that Crop is doing is they're educating people that depending upon the beer, the shape of the glass will affect how you experience that beer.
So give me an example. What type of glass should I be using with what type of beer?
You know those long tapered ones that come up sort of like a funnel shape almost?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Those are for lager.
Okay.
And then if you want to get into like your heavier, your Belgian ales, your stouts and things, they come in a tumbler. You know, one of those things you associate with a water glass, a little bit wider at the top, a little bit narrower at the bottom.
Right.
Maybe you want to get into a pale ale or something that has a tulip-shaped glass.
Why does this change the way you experience the beer? Is it because of how it affects your smell?
Correct.
The glass can actually influence that.
Glass do, and when you speak to people who are passionate about their wines, they're going to tell you, your white wine goes in this glass, your ice wine goes in this glass. It's all depending on the experience.
I've actually heard you should, if you have the option, you should never drink the beer out of the bottle because the bottle sort of closes off the smell and you're not engaging your nose when you drink it. So if you can, you always want to drink it out of a glass.
That's true, unless you're outside and it's hot and you don't want it to cool down.
Right. All right, so we've got our beer. We're all set up there. Let's start talking about appetizers. What do you recommend?
Well, of course, everything changes. So I'm just going to talk about the menu from 2 days ago, because that was the last time I was there.
Sure, what'd you have?
How about starting off with a cheddar lager soup? It's only $7. It's really nice, large soup. There's many other things, but I'm going to bring out one that I had to try, and it's one of my favorite. It sounds simple, but it has to be done right. Beer-battered dried pickles. It's fantastic. You know, that's only $6. If you happen to be vegan, how about a hand-rolled German-style pretzel with a nice crop brown ale mustard? Another one that I had, and I just couldn't resist. These are handcrafted tacos. One had duck confit in it. Another one had pulled pork. And the third one had this absolutely wonderful grilled chicken.
This sounds dangerous. This sounds like I could fill up just on the appetizers before I get to my meal. Talk to me about main dishes. What do you recommend?
A Reuben sandwich, actually a real Reuben sandwich for $11. That's really good. I also happen to like the fact that they had a mock chicken sandwich. I like that a lot.
A what chicken sandwich?
It's done with a special sauce. So a chicken confit, it's not like a grilled, it's a confit chicken with coleslaw and Portuguese muffin and hand-cut fries and this wonderful sauce. And it's called Carolina Mock Chicken. It's $12. Everything's fresh.
I like this that we're not breaking the bank here either. I mean, this sounds like you can get a really good meal at a really reasonable price.
Practically as much as you want, you get out for $35.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for the restaurant recommendation. Are you ready to play a little game?
Oh, sure. Let's play.
This game is called Out of the Frying Pan. Here's how it works. I'm going to ask you for a series of rapid-fire recommendations. Just tell me the first thing that comes to mind. And first, we've got to ask, in a place like Stowe, what restaurant has the best view?
The best view, it has to be Cliff House. Cliff House is sitting on the top of the highest mountain in Vermont. You have to go up by gondola.
But it's worth it.
Can't beat the view.
Let's say I've got kids in tow. You know, I got the 2-year-old on the back of the bike. Is there a good restaurant to go to with kids?
I don't think you can beat going to Pie in the Sky. It's hand-tossed, wood-fired pizza and pasta, soup, and sandwiches made to order. And that's located on the mountain road. You know, what kid doesn't like pizza? And this also gives the opportunity to say, no, he doesn't like mushrooms. Oh, no, this one doesn't like olives. This one happens to have this passion for smoked salmon. So you can create this.
What about for vegetarians? Is there a great spot if you're a vegetarian?
I would go to like the Green Goddess Cafe simply because, you know, the salads are great.
I've got to ask, because we're in Vermont, I've got to ask about cheese. Is there a great place to get cheese there?
I'm very passionate about cheese. Cheddar cheese from Cabot is internationally award-winning. And one of their main retail outlets is actually located in Waterbury Center, right on Route 100. So you can stop there and pick up cheese. But just about any kind of cheese that you can imagine is being produced in Vermont. Blue cheeses are being produced more and more. Goat cheeses are very popular. Sheep cheese. You're dealing with bries. So when you go into a local deli or into a restaurant that offers a cheese board, you will get quite a variety.
Last question, and I know you're the guy to ask for this. If I'm rolling into town and my bike needs a tune-up, needs some fixing, who do I go see in Stowe?
I do my own wrenching.
So we come see you.
That's it.
I should have asked, what are you riding?
Well, I own a couple of BMWs and a Ducati, but because of what I do as a motorcyclist, I'm frequently on factory bikes and press bikes. So it depends. I could be on a Harley. I could be on KTM. I might be on a dual sport. I might be on a cruiser. I might be on a sport tour. Depends on the situation. But I own 3 motorcycles.
Well, thank you so much for the restaurant recommendation. It's Crop Bistro and Brewery in Stowe. It's located at 1859 Mountain Road in Stowe, Vermont. People can find it online at cropvt.com. What about you, Ken? Where can people read you if people want to follow you online, on social media? How can they do that?
Well, the easiest way is just to type my name into Google. But if you want to read a few of my blogs, you can do that at touringroads.wordpress.com or go to Amazon.com, order one of my books, subscribe to Writer Magazine or Backroads, or you can find me in a lot of different places.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You are our first Moto Foodie. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks so much, Seth. I appreciate it.
My name's Seth Ressler. A couple of show notes before we go. First of all, head over to the TasteTrekkers.com website. We've relaunched it. Check out everything that's going on there. You can see stuff from the Food Tourism Conference. You can also start your own culinary vacation. Just go there and you can see all sorts of events that are happening all over the country. Also, please subscribe to the podcast in iTunes. While you're there, leave a review. You can also follow us on Twitter. We're Taste Trekkers. We're on Facebook as well. And if you want to be a guest on the show, if you want to come on, all you have to do is click the Contact Us link over on the Taste Trekkers website. Send us an email. We would love to have you. Thanks so much for listening.
This is the Fine Dining Podcast. You can find links to the places mentioned in this episode at TasteTrekkers.com. TasteTrekkers.com. Thank you for listening.